Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at my bag, the bag of an MA2 player. I'm currently rated 920. I dropped 1 point after the last ratings update of May. One of my highest ratings from last year dropped off, and that hurt me a little bit. So I'm looking to bounce back. To get started, we're going to look at the actual bag itself. I am using the Upper Park Rebel, and this is the Upper Park's most premium bag. It's very lightweight, it's made out of recycled materials, and I generally just can't say enough about how good this bag is as far as being a bag that carries a lot of stuff. As you can see, many discs, nice big side pockets, a couple other random small pockets, but this bag, for how nicely it rides on your back, how light it is, and the materials that it's made from, I really love this bag, and I'm really happy to be using it for this season. Let's start with what's on the sides of the bag. As you can see here, I've got my water bottle. Then I also have my disc retriever. The one with the suction cup seems to work the best. I've tried a couple of the other ones with the two claw, the raking head. The ball on the top with the suction cup seems, in my opinion, to be the absolute best disc retriever on the market right now. I've got my regular towel that I use to wipe off most of my discs if there's dew in the morning or I get near like a creek bed or something. And then, as you can see, the pockets open up pretty large. You can get a disc or two in there. Sometimes, depending on how big of a diameter the disc is, the pocket may not close all the way, but some people don't mind their bags hanging open a little bit. I got a friction glove in here, just in case weather gets cold and rainy. I can put it on my right hand. The bag comes with a rain fly, so this rain fly covers the whole entire bag. I've got an extra small hand towel in there, and I've got some tissues just in case it's cold out, my nose is running, or emergency in the woods or something. Both sides have this area where you can put Velcro patches. As you can see, I've got my Team Camber patch. So this year I'm sponsored by Camber Disc Golf, a company out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then I got another patch for a buddy's local disc golf course. I've got a pin here in the marker pencil slot. This pin is for the amateur championships in Lebanon that I won this year. It was a B tier, 2-day, 3-rounder. On the front, I've got a pin for nationals, just because I went to nationals last November and competed, and so those are two pins that I'm really proud of, and I'm willing to put on my bag. In this other pocket, I've got my keys, I've got snacks, meat stick, markers, a filing thing to help wear down sharp edges that might happen on the disc rims, just to make sure that I don't get my fingers cut up too bad. I've got a kneeling pad, so I can toss this down. It's kind of like a mini, but you can kneel on it. It's foam. And then down in this lower part, I have a hand warmer. I've got some ibuprofen. I've got some nail clippers in there and a tick removal key, just to help make sure that I'm not letting ticks stay on me for too long. And then at the bottom here, I do have a rangefinder, Bushnell rangefinder. I don't use it a lot, but sometimes when I go to new courses, I'll break it out and use it just to see what my approach shot might have to look like. Hanging off the bag here, I've got two towels. One is a flight towel, and so I use this sometimes for warming up. If we get a backup at a hole in a tournament, I might use this to just make sure that I'm staying loose, staying warm, keeping the backhand and the forehand warm. Then I've got just another regular towel just to help keep things dry. There is this pocket here as well for another water bottle in case you need to. The front of the bag opens up and the zip rolls down, and you put it in the front pocket here to help get that out of the way. I've seen that some people also lay that down in the base part of the disc compartment, so then they have this as another compartment where you can put like a rubber band or, like a TheraBand or another towel or something in there. There's also a pocket up here where you could put your phone or your mini or a couple snacks or something. And then it's got these two kind of hidden pockets. One right here where I keep my mini on this side, and then on this side I keep my dry bag. The back of the bag, as you can see, it's pretty well padded. It's got thick pads up here on the backs. and it's got a nice thick pad down here on the lumbar. Straps are pretty decent. They're not interchangeable, but Upper Park has a guarantee so that if anything happens to your bag, they will fix or replace it within reason. So let's get to the main bulk of the video here, and that's going to be talking about my discs and what I'm using for this 2024 disc golf season. A couple changes just since my last tournament to my discs that I have in here. I've played 8 tournaments so far this season. I have 2 firsts and 2 seconds. All right, let's start top pocket. We're gonna go slowest to fastest. In the top pocket here, I'm able to carry 4 discs. Hidden in the back is a Berg X. So this disc is a clutch upshot disc for me, where I'm throwing a lot of forehand approaches. Sometimes I might throw a little backhand, but mostly for the Berg X, I'm throwing forehand approaches. I prefer the forehand approach over a backhand 9 times out of 10 if I can get away with it. The Berg X is a great disc because even though it's like thick and bulky, it really loves to stick to the ground. So when I approach with it, I know that even if it's on a hillside, as long as I'm landing parallel to the hill, then I'm probably gonna stick pretty well. Rollaway potential for this, I would imagine, is pretty high with it being a wheel, but in my experience with bagging a Berg last year and then switching to the Berg X this year, I haven't really seen too many rollaways. More often than not, it just sticks and it just hits and sticks. Then we're gonna get into my putting putters. I carry 2 classic hybrid Judges. One is the putter that I pretty much use 9 times out of 10 unless I missed a putt and then I'm walking up and tapping in the other one. But I carry 2 because I used to carry 1 putting putter, and then I got into a situation in a tournament last year where I putted up to a basket, it hit a bank, rolled down across the fairway, down over the side of the embankment and into a river. Now thankfully for that tournament, I was able to retrieve my disc. It stayed kind of like in the mud right before it goes out into the river itself. So I got it back, but ever since then I was like, I better keep 2. And then it just also makes playing and practicing in casual rounds a little better for putting, because then I have 2 of the same consistent putters to practice with. So the classic hybrid Judge, I love the feel. I used to putt originally with the Deputy, then I switched to a PA1, a soft PA1 for like 2 seasons. Last year I switched to the Judge, but they're nice and tacky. I have never felt another Judge that I liked in my hand. It just so happened that I ordered one of these with some tournament winnings and I loved it the moment I felt it. I originally got it to be a throwing putter, but it became my putting putter. Then finally up in that pocket, we've got a Latitude 64 Pure. This is the first upgraded putter I ever bought when I started playing disc golf. My original putter was from a Franklin starter set from Walmart. The Pure is my turnover backhand disc or hyzer flip pushing straight putter shot. The Pure is beadless. I don't like to putt with a beadless putter, so I do like throwing with it though. So mostly what I'm looking for with this disc is something that I can throw on an ante and it's just gonna hold and keep going, or if I need to forehand chop an ante, it's gonna hold as well. This thing never really comes out of its flight, which is something that for my skill level, I tend to leak out of anhyzers early with a lot of my shots. I think it's a nose up problem, but the Pure holds and it just keeps going. New to the bag is the Eagle McMahon Envy, the one that he calls the Rebirth. I just got this to replace another Envy that was in my bag that I put in at the end of last year to replace the MVP Watt. The Watt was just getting too understable for me and I wanted something that I could throw and it was gonna push straight, and then just barely finish. These Rebirth Envies seem to be ever so slightly more understable than the previous Envy that I had, just based on the few throws that I've done with this so far. But this thing glides pretty well, so I'm looking forward to continuing to break this in and figure out what type of shots I can really maximize with this guy. Then we're gonna bump down to the ESP Zone. So the Zone is a primarily forehand approach shot disc for me. This is something I'm using from like 200 and in. The ESP plastic makes it gummier, makes it feel good in my hand for the summer. And if it is a little bit rainy or the ground's a little wet or my hands are a little clammy from it being humid out, then the ESP plastic is what feels good to me versus something that's going to be of like a stiffer, harder plastic. The next one we've got is its super overstable companion, the Zone OS. This is a utility disc for me. I use it a lot for chop forehand upshots or really anti-flex dumping backhand approaches. This thing is more of my like 100 feet and in disc. I don't really like to use it a lot for distance shots because I really love the amount of control that I have with it on forehand approach and chop shots. You put this thing on a dumb amount of anhyzer and it's gonna come back over. So I can really carve around different types of trees and barriers and stuff in the woods using the Zone OS. All right, now for the main compartment where I got 19 discs and then I had the 3 up here plus the 4 up here. So I believe, quick math, that's about 26 discs. We're gonna continue on from basically slowest to fastest. On the outside here, I've got a Justice. So the Justice is a very overstable mid-range. This is a disc that I like to use a lot for forehand approaches from like 200 to 250. I also do throw it backhand sometimes for approach shots. I really like the 220 to 240 spike hyzer backhand tee-offs with this disc. The Lucid plastic is a nice stiff plastic, so it keeps the integrity of the disc longer, in my opinion. And I can't say enough about the Justice. I had one in my bag last season that was like a rusty orange color. It was kind of hard to find in the leaves, so I did upgrade to this more vibrant orange Justice this season. Next up, we got 2 of the same disc, 2 different plastics. This is a 173 gram Geo Origin. So this is like a baseline plastic, and this disc is a hyzer flip to turnover disc. So it's not really turning up and going flat. When I throw this thing on a hyzer, it pops up to flat and it goes right. If I throw this thing on a nice chop forehand in the woods as some sort of scramble shot, I'm in danger, I'm trying to pop something that just needs to go out a little bit and then start banking left, then this is a disc that I reach for. I really love this disc for those pop forehand, flip up, get left shots when I'm stuck around something where I need to get out to the right first. Then we've got its twin brother, but different plastic. So we've got the Neo Origin. I love this bubblegum pink. This one is in 177 grams, so it's a little heavier. And this disc is the one that I use for slight hyzer flip up to pushing straight to maybe a little bit of drift right mid-range shots. So this thing goes very far for a 5.5 speed glide disc. This thing does go very far. I really love the Origin. I've been debating on trying to switch this out with the Detour that I got from the MVP Gyropalooza box, but my Detour is blue, this is bright pink, it's easier to see, and I already know that it goes far, so I'm keeping up with this one for now. Moving up in stability, we've got the Method in Neoplastic. This is a nice firm plastic. I really like this disc for the shots that are gonna go straight for a long distance and then fade at the end. This replaced an old titanium Buzz that I had in my bag for a couple years, and the Method has been able to stay in my bag for the last 2 to 3 seasons because of its integrity with how well it flies straight, stays straight, and dumps at the end. So my primary go-to mid-range is the Method. And now another newer disc in my bag that I've had in my bag for about 2 months now is the Castaplast K1 Stig. This disc is a 6.5 -2.1. It actually feels more like a hybrid mid-range to fairway driver, in my opinion. When I first started throwing it, I thought it was a fairway driver, like a slow speed control driver. I guess you could argue it is, but it does say mid-range. So this disc has been phenomenal for my game because, as I mentioned before, I have a hard time with throwing anything on anhyzer and letting it hold that line. When I do it, it typically wants to come out of it and dump at the end at some point in the flight. The Stig almost never does that. I can throw this thing on a chop anhyzer, a glidey anhyzer, and the thing just holds and holds and holds and holds, and this thing goes far. I'm talking, I'm in the woods, I'm trying to get, like, you know, maybe I had a shot off the tee where I hit first available tree, and the only thing I've got is a long panning anhyzer or a long panning anhyzer forehand to get most of the way down the fairway towards the basket, and this thing gets there. It's really surprised me on multiple occasions, so I am loving the Stig so far. Okay, then we've got, next up, 6.5 speed, the Crave, Fission Crave. Most people know what the Crave is. This is a staple in a lot of players' bags, especially if they're amateur status, you know, MA3, MA2, MA1 maybe. But the Crave is a great disc that just pushes straight. Hyzer flips real nice and easy. This one in particular, I really love it for short hyzer flips. You know, a little bit of hyzer, it gets up to flat and it just pushes. And then if I give it a little bit more juice, then sometimes it gets a little bit of turn at the end too. But this is really good for just carving up fairways, tunnel shots, especially tunnel shots. That's what I really use this disc for the most. I can bite off a fair amount of distance with it in the woods. So those like medium length tunnel shots are what I'm going to for the Crave. And then we're bumping up to the Clash Cookie. This disc has currently replaced the FD that I had in my bag for a long while. And the Cookie is really cool because I can use this backhand or forehand. Typically I differentiate my disc based on whether they are a forehand disc or a backhand disc. But this guy has like a curved under edge, which I feel like is really nice for my forehand grip. And this thing just feels so good throwing forehands with it because it's so low profile. It just feels like it's already in the crutch of my hand so nicely. And I use this for a lot of shots where I need to throw something on a forehand up around to the left that then comes back to the right onto the fairway. So if it's a hole that goes up, left, and then goes out for a long distance or eventually breaks back to the right, I like this disc for getting me up around to the left and coming back into the fairway versus throwing something backhand that's going to go up around to the left and then possibly dump out into the left side rough woods area that's going to put you in jail. And then on backhand, this thing just crushes. It pushes, it pushes, it pushes. Very similar to an FD flight where it goes and goes and goes. The more you give it, the little bit of turn it kind of gets and then comes back. Big fan of the Cookie so far. And then really moving up in stability, and this might be a surprise to some people if they're familiar with the Explorer, but this Explorer is the Opto X Chameleon Emerson Keith Edition Explorer, and this thing is super overstable. It's a 7-speed that I know if I don't give it enough juice off of the tee, it's going to get left super quick. It's going to dump really quick. I can throw it on flex shots. I can throw it out nice and straight for about 220 to 240, and then it just starts breaking left. So I really love this in particular Explorer for that type of shot. I don't think I own another disc that's a 7-speed that has this much overstability to it. So really love this specific Explorer. So next one is the Axiom Insanity. So neutron plastic. This thing is fairly beat up already, but it is quite stable. It just holds straight. I did have a Fission Insanity in the bag as well to complement it, to be a little bit more of a hyzer flip to understable disc. I recently took it out for one of my other newer discs in the bag, but this Insanity is money for me. I mean, it's pretty much my majority of the time workhorse off the tee disc. So I'm pushing this straight. It fades a little bit at the end. I can get turnovers. I can get nice glidey panning to the right shots. If I throw this on a hyzer, it holds fairly well. Wants to stand up a little bit just to get that little extra glide, and then it finishes on its hyzer. Love the Insanity. Now we're going to go into one of my utility discs, and that is the Splice. So neoplastic, again, very durable, hard plastic. The Splice is a disc that I absolutely love for chop carving forehands in the woods. I also recently started using it for forehand spike hyzers because I have an issue with my shoulder where my doctor thinks I have a partially torn labrum, and so anything overhand, tomahawks, thumbers, they immediately hurt my shoulder and I'm pretty much toast the rest of the round. So this disc has been working fantastic for these like forehand spike hyzers. Just goes up, carves straight down, hits like a knife. Primary use for it though is carving the fairways. So I throw this on chop forehands, I throw it on flat forehands, and it just wants to get right. Occasionally I'll throw it backhand, but for the most part it's a forehand specialty utility disc. And then the other main workhorse in my bag is going to be a Raptor. So this is in a nice hard plastic. I think this is Z plastic, and it's my main workhorse for anything forehands and backhands that need to get left, but I need to push like 240 to 260 comfortably. I'd like to use it for light flex forehands, so I'm not putting a ton of anhyzer on this disc because it will pull over for a while before it wants to come back. But if I throw this pretty flat or a little bit of hyzer, I mean, it'll drift left and then it'll barrel back over to the right. Spike hyzers, either backhand or forehand, I really like this disc for its control. I'll probably always have some sort of Raptor in the bag. I've tried Felons, I've tried Firebirds, and I keep going back to the Raptor. It's just the one that feels better in my hand. This one in particular is pretty flat, not a lot of dome, and that's what I really like out of my workhorse forehand approaching fairway disc. Now, a utility disc in my bag that I used to get a lot of work but doesn't anymore because of the shoulder issue that I mentioned is this Blizzard Boss. So this is the oldest disc in my bag. It's one of the first discs I bought when I started upgrading from the starter pack that I had. And this disc, as you can see, is super chewed up, and that's just because it is tomahawks and thumbers only. And then even then it was 90% tomahawks, just because I don't throw thumbers very well. I really loved the overhand game that I had. I was a really good pin placement specialist, in my opinion, with tomahawks. I mean, I could throw gaps, I could get this to land in the circle, and I loved having that shot. But I have to adapt and move on. My shoulder is no longer allowing me to throw those very much, other than like a little doinker out of a bush or something. But the disc is still in my bag just in case I'm in some sort of tournament in a special situation where I absolutely need to try that shot. But this could be a disc that I could take out anytime in the near future and replace it with something else. All right, now we're moving into my faster speed discs. Again, I prefer some discs to backhand and some to forehand, so that's why I have so many distance drivers. It's not that I need all of them based on like what they are. It's just the fact that some fly one way for me and others fly the other. All right, so the next one is my main distance forehand disc, and this is the Dynamic Disc Sergeant. The Sergeant is a really nice flat disc. It's got a low profile. It fits really good in my hand for forehands. And this is the disc that I'm using when I want to crush something nice and flat or on a slight little bit of hyzer and it just stands up and pushes straight. I mean, this is the disc I'm grabbing when I want something that I know I need to laser through a gap. Like when it comes out, it just needs to go straight. I don't want any play left or right, just straight. And then it finishes at the end as a distance driver typically does. But the Sergeant, I had a bright pink one in my bag last year. I kind of beat it in a little bit to be a little too understable for my liking, so then I switched to this guy. All right, now one of the other newest discs to my bag is this Grace. So this is the Latitude 64 Grace. I really love the Grace for my long distance backhand shots. So I actually have two Graces. This one, the Kristen Tatar one time, has been my workhorse for long distance shots since the beginning of last season, where I got this in a tournament that I placed high enough to cash, and I was able to grab a disc out of their selection. So this disc, the Kristen, is very overstable to start, and it's beaten in to be fairly overstable. So I know that this one is the one I can trust with a bit more wind, and one that I know is going to get a little more left on me without going too far to the right in its flight path. Whereas the newer Grace is the one that I got so that I can hopefully beat this one in to give me a longer S-curve, glidey, right turn to light fade shot at the end. So I got these to complement each other. This Grace is still getting beat in. I've only really thrown it one day so far, so about 3 courses I think I played the other day, and by the middle of the second and the third course, this was flying pretty decent for me without fading out too early. Moving on, we're going to get into a little bit more stability. I bag a Force ESP plastic. This is primarily a forehand disc for me, but I also do use this one a lot on backhand. So if there's a fair amount of wind and I know that I need to get this out a fair distance and fight the wind, then I typically reach for the Force. I like the ESP plastic, the gummier plastic. That gives me the most amount of grip to feel comfortable. And I don't have a lot to say about the Force. It just kind of is an overstable distance driver for me. And then similar to the Force is the Destroyer. I've always bagged an Innova Destroyer. I at one point tried not to bag one, and then I just realized I love the Destroyer for power forehands that are gonna get right. So I crank this thing on some chop anhyzer or some mild anhyzer, and it pushes, it pushes, it pushes, and then it gets right. It dumps, it skips. And I love to have a Star Halo plastic Destroyer in the bag for when it's a little bit wet outside, a little rainy, or my grip just doesn't feel right for some reason. I reach for the Star plastic. And then to complement that, for power forehands, if it's great conditions, I'll reach for this Enforcer. This is a 12.4 0.54 fade, and so it's very overstable, and the amount of dome that's on it isn't too much for me, and I really love that I can just chop on this thing super hard, get a nice slight flip up. It will pan a little bit to the left and then really come back to the right. So this is the complement to my Destroyer for power forehands that I need to get right. And then lastly in the bag, I bag a Rive. This is one of those discs that's been in my bag for a little while that I was continuously trying to break in to possibly turn into a distance driver for me, like max distance, with it being a 13.50 3.5. I don't really need a disc in my bag that's a 13 speed, but the Rive is a nice disc. It flies very well for me with my arm speed, and I can get this out in the wind to like 350 to 400 as long as I keep that nose down. But the Rive is a fun disc. It's one that I enjoy throwing. It feels good, so it's just kind of hung around in my bag as one that I pull out for windy conditions where I'm looking for something to go straighter than what my Force will in the wind. All right, everyone, so thanks for checking out my bag. If you really liked what you saw, if you have any opinions, if you have any criticism, any compliments, any discs that you think maybe I should try in place of one of the other ones that I have, feel free to leave a message in the comments for me. If you haven't already subscribed, I greatly appreciate it if you like and subscribe. That helps us out a lot, and it helps us be able to bring more disc golf content to your YouTube algorithm. And then if you feel inclined to want to try to support me personally, you can use my code ITC Brandon at Upper Park. You can use it at Camber Disc Golf. You can also use it at Flippy for your jersey apparel. And those will really help me a lot to be able to keep progressing my game, keep making content, upgrading my equipment. So yeah, check out the links below and hope to catch you guys inside the circle.